politics in contemporary times. His another book is also very famous, Communal Politics, Facts versus Myths. Communalism, what is false and what is true. Indian democracy, pluralism, and minorities. He has been also awarded with Indira Gandhi Award for National Integration in 2006, National Communal Harmony Award in 2000.
Nice cake, Daddy.
I'm sorry, please mute yourself, everyone. I'm sorry. All right, so again, our another speaker is Dr. Naila Ali Khan, and she is a professor at Rose State College of Oklahoma, and she received her PhD in English literature and her master's in post-colonial literature and theory at the University of Oklahoma. She is also honored by the General Record as one of the 50 women making a difference in Oklahoma in 2019 and 2020 as well. She is an author of several published articles, book reviews, and editorials. The most fascinating thing for me about her is her faith and commitment that education can provide, motivate to build bridges across racial, political, and ideological divides.
Friends, we're introducing our speakers.
Naila. And our another precious guest is Dr. Pandit Sharma, and who is carrying rich heritage of Vedic knowledge from his father, who was a renowned scholar of his era. He has worked very closely with Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi and P.V. Narasimha Rao. At the same time, he is closely associated with His Holiness Jagat Guru Sri Shankaracharya of Dwarka, Jyotish, and Puri Mutt. Contribution to rebuild the confidence and unity amongst the two communities is very remarkable. He is also a founder of Universal Association for Spiritual Awareness and the organization Support for Interaction with Worldwide Spiritual Leaders to bridge the social and religious differences. Thank you so much for joining us. And Dr. Shamsul Islam, who is an author, columnist, and speaker. He specializes his fundamental research on the rise of nationalism and its development in the world and India. He has written more than 1,000 articles in prominent dailies, and not just India, but abroad. He is an author of several books like Indian Freedom Movement and RSS, Muslims Against Partition. Authored more than 20 street plays on the issues of caste, gender bias, exploitation, intolerance, dehumanization, and human rights and peace. Thank you all. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks.
Let's bust the myths, Dr. Mike.
Thank you very much, Pinky. Friends, that was the introduction of our great speakers, great line of speakers, and they are going to be answering a lot of your questions you may have, the myths about Hindus and Muslims. When we clarify these myths about each other, we feel free. When the truth is set, when we learn the truth, it sets us free, and that is very important. Now, let me start with a question as a moderator. Muslim men in India marry more than one woman. Anybody wants to take? Panditji, you want to take a question and a response to that?
No, this is not correct. I have my thousands of the Muslim friends all across India, and I can say you that it is only available among when thousands it is available only in 20 or 25 people, not more than that.
I appreciate that. And Shamsul Islam, you have a response to that?
It would be interesting to note what the census data says on this issue. That around 2%, 2% Hindus have more than one wife, and 1.6% Muslims have more than one wife. Firstly, and the other thing in fact, I want to share with friends before discussing all other myths or questions concerning those myths is that we always, one of the biggest hoax and myth is that one religious community, all members of that think alike, act alike, and have same kind of belief system. That's absolutely wrong. That's not true. So the first myth we must demolish is...
I know, it sounded very interesting.
Please.
Will it be recorded? Can I hear it later?
I do not know. Just now it is on.
We are recording it and we can share with you. Please don't interrupt. Thank you.
Dr. Shamsul Islam, if you're speaking, unmute yourselves. Our speakers to unmute themselves.
Yeah. Mike, I would like to go after Dr. Islam.
Absolutely.
Sure,
Absolutely.
sure.
Could I go after the madam?
No, I think we're just going to do the speakers.
Okay.
You will have an opportunity towards the end to ask any question.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, Dr. Shamsul Islam, please unmute yourselves. You got to unmute.
Fine, I did. Yes, I did it. So what I'm trying to say is that the first myth we must demolish is that followers of one particular religion, they all think alike. That's an organic whole. That's a uniform collective. Or they think alike, they act alike, and they are under some common command. That's absolute. That's a rubbish. That's a lie. It has never happened in history. It defies common sense. It defies history. It defies logic. If anybody can cite one example of a community that community, all members they believed in the same kind of system, and they acted under one command. Give me one example in history.
I would like to build on what Dr. Islam just said. I think first off, it is very important to question the category of the Muslim world, Muslim men, Muslim women. It is ridiculous to homogenize, exactly as Dr. Islam said, an entire community. The Muslim community of India, the Muslim community of Pakistan, these are heterogeneous communities. There is more than one school of thought in Islam, right? Sharia law is not a monolith. It's not a monolithic entity. There are diverse interpretations of Sharia law in Muslim countries. Now, polygamy, it is practiced by some Muslim men in India, Pakistan, and other Muslim countries as well. But I think it is very important to draw a line of demarcation between culture and religion. Some practices that we attribute to Islam or that we attribute to Hinduism are cultural. They have nothing at all to do with religion. You see, there are a lot of ugly practices that were banned by Islam. When Islam was revealed in the 7th century, female infanticide was a common practice in Arabia, in Jahiliyyah. That practice was banned by the Quran. There were other freedoms that Islam gave to the women of Jahiliyyah. And those freedoms were enormous in 7th century Arabia. in that context, right? Today, in the 21st century, there are some regressive practices that exist in Muslim countries, and polygamy is one of them. But that is because religion is distorted by people to justify their ridiculous practices. I'm sure a lot of people don't know that polygamy is now banned in Morocco because of the reforms in Muslim personal law in that country. And your audience would also be interested to know, Mike, that there was a time when polygamy was close to impossible in Iraq.
Yes.
You see? Now, I was raised in Kashmir. In Srinagar, which is the summer capital of Jammu and Kashmir, polygamy was not a common practice at all. And for government officials and government servants, it was a crime to take more than one wife. Even Muslim government officials and government servants. To take more than one wife in Jammu and Kashmir was considered bigamy. It was a crime. So exactly as Professor Islam said, you cannot homogenize an entire community and say all Muslim men practice polygamy.
And I think he gave you good statistics. It's less than 2% and comparable to Hindu community. Now, Dr. Rampunyani, you want to share a point on this?
Yeah, actually, most of the points have been made. Only one minor point I would like to add, and that is about the sex ratio in India. If you see sex ratio in India for Muslims, according to 2011 census, was 940. Means there are 1,000 Muslim men and there are 940 Muslim women. So the question of polygamy in that sense doesn't arise. And the incidence, practical incidence of polygamy, as Dr. Islam pointed out, is much less, or rather slightly less amongst Muslims than amongst the Hindus. But lately those people who create these myths, there is a political purpose behind that, because they want to demonize the whole community. They want to create the hatred, and this can be one of the components for getting the violence orchestrated. I just want to expand the point. So lately, say on the same lines, they are trying to say that something like love jihad. Probably we'll come to that later on in our discussion. They are also trying to see as if Hindu girls don't have their mind and any Muslim boy can come and lure them away, etc., etc. So basically this polygamy, though it is a laughable matter, it is a laughable matter from statistical point of view, from social point of view, from the lack of non-uniformity, but still in the popular psyche, it is very deeply rooted. And that is because many people who are having this political orientation, they have worked consistently to propagate this and that section of media, section of other things. They have merely carried out this myth to a very great extent. So this is deeply rooted, and that needs to be combated very strongly.
Interestingly, sorry,
go ahead.
1 minute. Interestingly, first thing that polygamy cannot be defended. In no case, in no situation, polygamy cannot be defended. So it might have been a part of history, but it cannot be allowed today. But one interesting thing is that while we denigrate Muslims for polygamy, we celebrate Raja Janak, who had more than one wives.
Most of the kings, for that matter, most of the Hindu kings, for that matter, had more than one wife.
Well, thank you very much, and I think they're good responses. Let's go to love jihad. The love jihad has become a big issue in India right now, and that is the reason to create violence against Muslims in particular and some Christians. And how can we change this mindset? How can we change this belief that is ingrained into some people? It's not all Indians. Some people believe that. So Dr. Punyani, you start with that, and then we'll follow with Dr. Others.
Yeah. See, this whole bogey of love jihad has been raised from last 15 or 20 years. And this has become a very powerful tool in the hands of those political formations who want to believe in the one particular nation. 6 months ago, the Union Home Minister, failed to said that there is no category like love jihad officially, and he said there is not much statistics available by this, but popular one or the other case when it comes up, they just try to say that there is an organization which is funding young Muslim youth, getting them bicycles, getting them mobiles to lure the Hindu girls into marriage and then to convert that. Now, 2 or 3 investigations were done into that, one by a deputy commissioner in Kerala, and he found that there is no truth in that. And other cases also, as such, there is no truth. But in such a vast society, occasionally such a welcome case, actually I will say this is a welcome case rather than something which is to be looked down upon, that comes up, and these people want to attack that. Now, there are 2 ideas behind that. One is to present the Muslims in a bad light as lecherous and trying to appropriate others' property. See, this whole thing is moving around a patriarchal notion that if a Muslim girl is brought into a Hindu family, that is welcome. But if a Hindu girl goes into the Muslim family, that is condemnable, and that is a loss of this thing. So basically what is operating is at 2 levels. One is that basically it is a patriarchal notion around which our women, their women, this category stands. And number 2, on one hand, this is used to demonize the Muslims. On the other hand, which is bigger, I think, to me, and that is to control the lives of Hindu girls. Please note, recently, as many states are coming up with legislations against love jihad, against interreligious marriages. Of course, before I go further, I am also reminded that Hitler, in his time,
I think there is an internet problem.
is
Yes.
parallel to communal politics, parallel to fundamentalist politics, and fundamentalist politics always wants to control the lives of the women. So these are the twin aspects of the whole issue of love jihad, to control the lives of the women and girls and to demonize the other community. So there is no truth in that. On just going one step further, I'll say that if we want national integration, if we want equality in the society, the interreligious marriages are natural. They should be welcome. And as Dr. Ambedkar said, to annihilate the caste, we need inter-caste marriages. Taking the point further, I will say, to consolidate the national integration, we should promote interreligious marriages. That's my opinion.
I think it's a good opinion. 40% of marriages in the United States are interfaith marriages. 40%. That is among Hindus, Muslims, Christians, and everyone. And thank you so much. Now, Dr. Islam, you want to share your point on this, love jihad?
Love jihad is not only the worry of those who think flag bearers of Hindutva or Hinduism. Among Muslims also there are forces who hate if a Muslim girl marry a Hindu or Christian boy, and there are instances where the boy who married and girl, Muslim girl and a Hindu boy who married, they were murdered. But about Hindutva thing, that it is a campaign. It is a campaign, and the basis of that is that Muslims are going to be majority in next 50 years through what? Through conversions, through love jihad, right? And love jihad, is one of the thing, one of their tool, and that's not the only one. One is cow, then other one is that they are converting, they are creating too many children, and they are marrying 4 times, right? So Savarkar started this in 1920s. And he said, when he became president of the Hindu Mahasabha, he said in next 50 years, Muslims are going to be in majority, right? Muslims who did not become a majority in 800 years of Muslim rule, so-called Muslim rule, now in next 50 years would become in majority, and that for 50 years keeps on extending, you know. Savarkar's 50 years, after Savarkar, RSS is taken over. So after, next 50 years, Muslims would be in majority.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Dr. Pandit Sharma? Dr. Sharma?
He needs to unmute himself.
Naila, you can go.
Well, you know, love jihad in India has a lot to do with the growth of vigilantism. What we have been seeing in India in the past few years is the growth and legitimization of vigilante politics, right? So it's the democracy that we were raised to believe in needs to be refurbished. The democratic institutions that a lot of us, Muslims and Hindus, were raised to believe in need to be revived. It is because of the erosion of true democracy in India, and democracy cannot be successful without participation by minorities, right? So it is because of the criminalization of minorities in India, because of the way they have been marginalized, that democratic institutions, even at the grassroots level, have been eroded. And that erosion has led to vigilantes doing whatever they like. So this love jihad movement is led by non-state actors who have the backing of head honchos, people at the helm of affairs. And I completely agree with Dr. Puniani that love jihad has a lot to do with the objectification of women. Not just the demonization of Muslims, but the objectification of both Hindu and Muslim women. It's like Hindu women don't have minds of their own. You see,
yes, it is a good point.
It's like they're infants, they're being infantilized, and they can be seduced very easily by a Muslim man carrying a cell phone and riding a bicycle. I mean, that's the height of absurdity. So there is a lack of critical intelligence there. There is a lack of critical thinking. And also, you know, again, I mean, the dissemination of a political discourse that is not democratic in any way, shape, or form. In this day and age, we should be building bridges so we can respectfully talk with one another, so we can disseminate civil discourse and build common ground between various religious communities in order to solve real problems. Instead, what we are seeing is the blurring of the line between church and state. When the government starts to interfere in people's personal lives, in people's love lives, through their vigilantes, that is a blurring of the line between church and state. And that is not the India that I was raised to believe in.
And that was not the India I was raised either. And I think programs like this, Dr. Khan, we can, I hope more and more people do this program to bust these myths that they are not real, but they are politically motivated. And appreciate that. Is Dr. Sharma here yet?
I think Dr. Islam wants to say something, Mike.
Go ahead, Dr. Islam.
Dr. Mike, I'm here.
Unfortunately, Pandit ji, please go ahead.
If you permit me, Mr. Islam.
No, you are always our Pujniya. You are my Pujniya.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. But Dr. Mike, I must appreciate your efforts in this direction. And I fully endorse the views expressed by Mr. Islam, some of them. And Dr. Punyani is a very well-known historian and has written so many things, and he is a very good speaker indeed. And but I would like to dwell upon the commonality which exists between the two religious biggest communities here in India. One is Hindus and one is Muslims. And I would like to say, and the biggest myth I would like to bust is that around 80% of the Hindu population in India, they believe in Sanatan Dharma. So the Sanatan Dharma is entirely different from the concept being spread in the name of Hindutva. No, it has nothing to do with the Hindutva. They mislead the most of the people, and unfortunately, as I said, we say Aham Brahmasmi, and the Sufi people say Anhalak, and they say Al-Batin, Al-Zahir, Al-Awwal, Al-Akhir. And similarly, we say Anajanta, Avyakta. So there are so many things, and most important thing, as I said, in our Hindu philosophy, that we believe in our religious texts. Srimad Bhagavad Mahapuran, one of the 18 Purans, written by Maharshi Ved Vyas. There is another Puran called Bhavishya Puran. And could you imagine, even before the arrival of the great prophet on the earth, more than 3,000 years before his arrival, and Maharshi Ved Vyas has said in this Bhagavad Mahapuran exactly the time and the year and the name of the parents, at what time he will arrive on this earth, who will be his father and mother, who will be his followers, and what he will actually do. And then he said, he is a messenger of the God. So we believe in that. So in that fashion, I say in the thousand of the gatherings of the Muslims as well as Hindus, that we similarly have the same respect for the great prophet as the Muslims have. So we are the same. Similarly, there is a Surah Fatiha. On the one important occasion, they recite Surah Fatiha. And we, on every important thing, we want to chant Gayatri Mantra. And if you translate this Gayatri Mantra, Om Bhur Sava Tarsavvarnam Bhargo Devasya Dhimai Dhyoyana Prachodat, if you translate in English, Surah Fatiha in Arabic, if you translate in English, you will find that it is exactly the same.
Indeed.
More so, yeah, more so, and as I said, there is a mistreat by, don't mind my using this word, the Western media, because the Indian media is totally controlled media nowadays. So even the Western media, for their objective, as nowadays here in India, the present ruling establishment, with their political motive, they want to divide the society just for their political gains. Similarly, they don't want this this thought to prevail upon, that 80% of the Hindus have no problem either with the Christians or with the Muslims, because their feeling and their belief is Mamai Vanso Jeeva Loke Jeev Bhuta Sanatana. Mamai Vanso Jeeva Loke Jeev Bhuta Sanatana. That God made man in his own shape. It is in Bible also. And the Bible, which I just forgot to mention, the Alpha, the Omega, that is the same thing. So basically, these religious things in all important texts are the same. They always say about universal brotherhood. As we say, Udar Charitanam Vasudev Kutumbakam. Each and everybody on this earth is part of our family. Once, Dr. Baik, you are my family. Mr. Islam, you are my family. Dr. Khan, my family. So then, how can I do anything which can hurt anybody? More so, the guiding principle of the Hindutva philosophy, which is the real one, and which is unfortunate about His Holiness, Jagat Guru Shankaracharya, Swami Sarupanand Saraswati Ji Maharaj. He is 96 years old today, and he is the head of the two famous, that was established 2,512 years ago. The tradition is still going on. So these two pithas, he is sitting as the Jagat Guru Shankaracharya. He says the present establishment has harmed our Hindu religion more than anybody else, because they are not following the real text. As I said, even during the foundation laying ceremony of this Ram temple. So I said, you don't want to follow the ideal placed by the Lord Rama, though we call him Maryada Purushottam Sri Ram. And Goswami Tulsidas said in his book called Ramcharitmanas, Nana Pwanigmagam Sammatam Yat Ramayane Nigmam Kvachidanyatopi Swantaya Sukhaya Tulsi Raghunatha Gatha Vasa Nimandamantul Matanoti. I am writing this book in the storytelling form, just that each and everybody, he doesn't say Hindu or Muslims. And don't forget, he was writing this book at the time when the Muslims were ruling, the Mughal were ruling in India. So he said, no differentiation, each and everybody. So these are the things. And more so in our Vedic philosophy, we go by about Vedic philosophy, and you will find that various mantras in the certain Vedas and the Vedic Quran Hadith are similar, brother, similar.
Sure.
Dr.
Rampuniani and Dr. Shamsul Islam want to add something to it, what you are saying.
Punyani Savji.
Yeah. Can I just underline one point? My point is this, that whenever politics wears the clothes of religion, whenever politics comes in the name of religion, fundamentalism or communalism, whatever you call it, it promotes patriarchal values to the hilt. And love jihad is, I think, one of the major expressions of this patriarchy in India. Recently, there was an advertisement of Tata company Tanishq, in which a Hindu girl was seen in a Muslim family, and that ad had to be withdrawn for commercial reasons and because Mr. Tata could not stand the attack of vigilantes on his whole thing. So my basic point is, it may be fundamentalism in the name of Islam, or Christian fundamentalism, or the Hindu fundamentalism, Hindu communalism. They are promoting patriarchy to the hilt. That is the core point of love jihad, according to me. Thank you.
I think patriarchy is controlling other people.
Can I add one thing? Mike.
Sure, go ahead.
Dr. Mike?
Yes.
So there is a Rashtravad. There is a big difference between Rashtravad and Modivad. So don't get confused by the Modivad into Rashtravad.
Got it. Got it. Thank you. Dr. Islam, now your turn.
I think we come, I think we come back to love jihad, this so-called love jihad. In any society, and in Indian society too, it's not one-way traffic that only Muslims are also marrying Hindu boys and Sikh boys and Christian boys. But that data is never, you go to, you see the film industry, Bombay film industry, and you can know very well-known heroines with Muslim names who married Hindu actors or Hindu males. Two of the RSS BJP's leading leaders have Muslim wives. They have Muslim, my own Ji and Panditji, N.K. Sharma ji,
Shahnawaz Hussain, you can name Shahnawaz Hussain.
he converted to Islam to marry
a Hindu girl.
but
Yes.
I think conversion should
so-
be, Dr. Islam, conversion, people should have the freedom to choose whatever faith they want to, wear whatever they want to. I think as Dr. Naila Khan also pointed out, that there should be a separation of church and the state. Otherwise, as Dr. Punyani has been saying repeatedly, which is very correct, it's patriarchy that some men want to control all others. In your own families, sometimes the grandfather controls everybody. They would not let you do anything other than what they say. And patriarchy can be defined as controlling others, taking away your freedom. So I think we have done fairly well on this one. Let's go to the Hindu side and respond to a few questions, and then we'll ask the audience to ask the questions.
Mike, can I say something real quick?
Sure.
I was muted, sorry. I saw a couple of questions in the chat box, and real quick, I would like to make a point about the participation of Muslims in politics in India, pre-partition India as well as post-partition India. You see, most people know only about the Muslim League and think that the Muslim League was the only political representation of Muslims in pre-partition India. That is incorrect. Several Muslims were involved in socio-economic reforms, agrarian reforms that transcended religious and communal divides in pre-partition India as well as post-partition India, right? So several Muslims created an emancipatory politics that did not lean on religion for legitimacy and that drew the line of demarcation between religion and government. It was done very successfully in Jammu and Kashmir, for instance, in the 1940s and the early 1950s. We had a politics that transcended religious divides.
Agree. Thank you. Well, let me do the last question on the Muslim side, and then we'll go back to the Hindu side. Our Prime Minister Modi, he constantly says 800 years of slavery. He refers to Muslim rule as slavery. I believe it is not a Muslim rule. It was the kings who ruled. There were Hindu kings, Muslim kings, and all. So the question is, the slavery, was there slavery by Muslim rulers, or were they called Muslim kings? And I would like to start with Dr. Punyani. He has done quite a lot of research on it. Dr. Punyani, you want to talk about Muslim kings, slavery?
See, actually, the term slavery at that time cannot be applied at all. It was a feudal system, landlordism, in which there is a serfdom and the landlords that is there. And parallelly, there was a caste system which was running together. And the terminology of Muslim rule was brought in by the British to deliberately pursue the policy of divide and rule. Whilst looking at Indian history, they divided into Hindu period, Muslim period, and British period. See the cleverness in this.
No Christian period.
If we see, no Christian period. And even if you see, most of the Muslim kings, as we were discussing before the program began, like you see Akbar. Now lately Rana Pratap is being projected as a great representative of Hindu nationalism, and Rana Pratap and Akbar's battle which took place in Haldi Ghati, that is supposed to be a battle between Hindus and Muslims. Some of that Akbar was there. Please refer to Satish Chandra's outstanding book on medieval history, which says that Akbar that time was busy somewhere else. So the Akbar's armies were being led by Raja Man Singh, and Rana Pratap's army had a general called Hakim Khan Sur. So please note, on both sides there are Hindus, both sides there are Muslims. Similarly, in Shivaji's army, there were 12 outstanding Muslim generals who were a part of him. And as my friend Professor Shamsul Islam pointed out, the person from Aurangzeb's side who came to confront Shivaji, it was Mirza Raja Jai Singh too, and even Aurangzeb's court. So see, it was the administration by kings. King may be Hindu, king may be Muslim, that's incidental, but British made it a point to identify them as Hindu or a Muslim. Here the best presentation comes from Mahatma Gandhi's book Hind Swaraj. There he points out that kings were kings, Muslim kings ruled, Hindus were living, and same thing is carried forward by Jawaharlal Nehru in his book Discovery of India, when he says it was, question is, how can it be a Muslim period or a Hindu period? A Muslim king was extracting the tribute, what we call in Hindi as Lagan, even from a Muslim peasant. It was not that because he was a Muslim, he was saying, okay, Muslim king, Muslim peasants don't have to pay the taxation. Same case with Hindu kings. Hindu kings were also extracting similar amount of tribute from the Hindu farmers. So question is, this is a now further developed by the communal forces in India, who are trying to say that the 80% Hindus, they have suffered slavery in the hands of Muslims. So now the revenge has to be taken. Hindu community is under threat. So this is a concoction in that direction. Slavery word cannot be applied, number one. Number two, it was a feudal society. Number three, the feudal society is based. The basic contradiction is not between Hindus and Muslims. The basic contradiction is between the landlord and the peasant. Peasant, farmer may be Hindu, it may be a Muslim. Landlord may be a Hindu, landlord may be a Muslim. But because the history has been, this history is called communal historiography, which has been deliberately introduced by British and carried on by the communal forces, Muslim communal forces in their own way and Hindu communal forces in their own way. That has resulted in this perception, which is the biggest perception we have to battle in today's times. Thank you.
That was a very clear message, Dr. Punyani, pointing out that it was not between Muslims and Hindus, but it was between the kings and the landlords and the people of power. That was a very clear message. I appreciate that. And Dr. Naila, do you want to say a few things? And Dr. Shams, you go ahead.
Thank you. While discussing this in-court Muslim rule, we should never forget or underplay the fact that Muslim rulers were as repressive, as bad as any other ruler could be at that time, right? For instance, Ravan was not a Muslim, but what he did to Bhagwan Ram and Sita ji, everybody knows. Rulers were doing very nasty kind of things. They were very brutish. That is true. But what they doing as Muslims? Let's take the example of Aurangzeb. Aurangzeb, you know what he did to his family, those who were all Muslims. Aurangzeb is the person who destroyed in fact, 3 best managed kingdoms of India. 2 in the today's Andhra and Telangana, and 1 is of Gujarat. And I have with me a letter which Shivaji wrote to Jai Singh, you know, when Jai Singh had encircled Shivaji's forces. And this he wrote, and the first 2 sentences I am reading. Jai Singh is also the person who gives his daughter in marriage to Aurangzeb's son, who becomes the next Mughal king. Shivaji's letter to Jai Singh. O Sardar of Sardar, King of Kings, manager of the mango trees of the garden of Bharat, O peace of the heart and consciousness of Ramchandra, the Rajputs hold up their heads owing to thee. The grandeur of the empire of Babur's dynasty is rendered all the more powerful owing to thee, and it is its good fortune to receive thy help. Aurangzeb's person who goes to fight Shivaji Maharaj is Jai Singh too. And Shivaji is writing a letter that you are supporting Mughals, though being a Rajput. So it was not that black and white that, and the issue I raised earlier also, that why is it that in 800 years of Muslim rule, population of Muslims did not exceed 20%, and all 99% of them remain poor. How could that happen? That has to be explained. If you do not explain that, then it means you are raising an issue just in order to persecute those who are Muslims living in India, in democratic secular India today.
I think we need to write a letter, a joint letter to Prime Minister Modi, that he needs to stop using the word slavery, because it was not slavery, as you have clarified, and Dr. Ram Punyani has clarified. Let's work on writing
Mike, I would like to make a point in the context of Jammu and Kashmir. So in pre-partition India, Muslim peasants in the Kashmir Valley were marginalized socioeconomically and disenfranchised politically. In Jammu, lower caste Hindus were just as marginalized socioeconomically and just as disenfranchised politically. And in Ladakh, those Buddhists who did not belong to the elite class were also marginalized. You see? So exactly as Dr. Punyani said, feudalism was an institution, a very deep-rooted institution that legitimized discrimination against lower caste peasants, whether Muslim, Hindu, or Buddhist. Even though Jammu and Kashmir, in terms of its population, was very diverse. In terms of its population, it was pluralistic. That Muslims, Hindus, and Buddhists, our monarch at the time in pre-partition India was Hindu, a Dogra Hindu. But people were discriminated against on the basis of their socioeconomic positions. Right? So landless peasants who were not able to own the lands they tilled, who worked for feudal lords as serfs, as vassals, were marginalized, whether Muslim or Hindu or Buddhist. And later, there were, as I pointed out a little while ago, there were Muslim politicians who brought about agrarian reforms, socioeconomic reforms that transcended religious divides, that were beneficial for Muslims, Hindus, as well as Buddhists.
These are very good, clear points. Dr. Sharmaji, you want to have a last word on this issue before we go to the other segment? Sharmaji? I think we'll move on to the next topic about Hindus. What are the myths about Hindus? Let me see. One of the myths is about the cow vigilante. Is it Hinduism, or where is it coming from, the cow vigilante, and how we can change this? Dr. Punyani? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
See, when we talk of Hinduism, as tendencies. Now, in Islam, tendencies begin from one source and they diversify. In Hinduism, there is a reverse process. There are multiple tendencies like Brahmanism, Nath, Tantra, Bhakti, Shaiv, Siddhant, which are put together into the broad category of Hinduism. So there are tendencies of Hinduism like that practiced by Mahatma Gandhi, which are very tolerant, which are very inclusive, and as Pandit Sharmaji pointed out, which do believe and practice Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. But there are other things which, according to me, the term Hindutva becomes more popular after 1923. And to me, Hinduism is a religion with multiple tendencies, while Hindutva is a politics dominated by Brahminical values of caste and gender hierarchy. So if we, and this Hindutva is what is trying to become Hindu nationalism. So in that sense, like majority of the Hindus in this country, they followed Mahatma Gandhi, and Mahatma Gandhi's interpretation of Hinduism and religion was so open that it could include most of the people in the country in the anti-colonial struggle against the. While talking of Hinduism, we have to keep the diversity of different tendencies in mind, and the type of Hinduism which Gandhi practiced and the type of Brahminical hold on the other tendencies which is there. These two things have to be discussed. Of course, they have to be distinguished. So we have to focus on this Hinduism of Gandhi in particular, which and Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which believes in incorporating. And last point on Hinduism, I think one of the best thing is that bhakti tradition, where Kabir, Tukaram, Namdev, Narsi Mehta, who identified religion as another name for love for the who talked against the oppression of the religious priestly class on the poor peasant and the low caste. So that bhakti tradition of Hinduism is something which I will like to uphold and identify with.
Appreciate that. This is important for our audience to know that when things go wrong, there is a tendency to blame all people in that religious group. There is a lot of Muslim groups and Christian groups I attend. They were blaming Hindus are like this. It took me a lot of time to clarify that it is not Hindus who are doing this. It is a segment of Hindus that are doing it. So I wrote an article called Hindutva is not Hinduism. They're two different things.
Very
So
good.
it is available at the Center
Very
for
good.
Pluralism website. Center for Pluralism. If you just search Hindutva is not Hinduism, you will find the article. And we consciously, Muslims, Hindus consciously need to avoid labeling, stereotyping the others. There are few people who are bad in every group, and we need to acknowledge that, but they don't represent the entire group. So now the same question followed by Dr. Naila Khan. You are there. Go ahead.
I have a very small disagreement with Dr. Punyani. Gandhi was, he had his qualities, his politics were emancipatory in some ways, liberatory in some ways, but Gandhi, I would argue, subscribed to essentialist notions of Islam and Hinduism. He supported the Khilafat movement, which quite a few Muslim politicians, including Muhammad Ali Jinnah, did not support. So I have a small disagreement with Dr. Punyani there. I think Gandhi also, there was, a strategic essentialism that he subscribed to when it worked for him politically. So for instance, in pre-partition India, Muhammad Ali Jinnah was one of the Muslim politicians who did not agree with the Khilafat movement. Sheikh Muhammad Abdullah of Kashmir did not subscribe to the Khilafat movement. And we need to think about these things critically. That is important.
I appreciate that. Dr.
By
Shamsul.
the way, I would like to add that Muhammad Ali Jinnah was totally opposed by Jamiat Ulama Hind, a nationalist organization of the Muslims. And today their number is around 40 million as membership. And, Jamiat Ulama Hind and Jamiat Ahle Hadith, etc. So, they also opposed Mr. Jinnah. And they were totally opposed to this two-nation theory. But one thing which I missed that about Jammu Kashmir, after this so-called abrogation of 370, whatever was being proclaimed by the present establishment, that there will be so peace and tranquility and prosperity in Kashmir. And if you really see the situation on the ground, it is entirely different. Just like in India, they portray $5 trillion economy. Similarly, we are facing the real sort of the slavery at this juncture. Forget about 800 slavery, 800 years as a slavery. Let us talk about the present. And one thing more I would like to add, what my good friend has told me, that there is also a big myth about Brahmanical approach.
Yes.
You know, Maharishi Vishwamitra, he was not Brahmin. And Maharishi Ved Vyas, who read 18 Purans, he was not Brahmin, by the way. He born to a fisherwoman, by the way, fisherwoman, he was born. And he was called in Maharishi Valmiki, the great sage, who wrote Ramayana, not Ramcharitmanas. Don't misunderstand me. Ramcharitmanas written by Tulsidas and Ramayana by Maharishi Valmiki. He was also not Brahmins. Similarly, there is a big myth about the Manusmriti. No, there are hundreds of other Smriti as well. Yagyavalak is also a very renowned sage. He was also not a Brahmin. So there is a very, because what is being just like Hindus, as they are just being treated as RSS guys. Similarly, the Brahmins, they are being put in that category. There is a very small fraction of the Brahmins who are part of Chit Pavan Brahmins. Only a small part of their origin came from the Jewish side, and they are part of the RSS. So all Hindus are not RSS. Sorry, this is not the correct. As I told you, they are totally opposed to the idea of this line of philosophy. But more so, there is a big difference. There were 840 million voters. Can you imagine only 200 million voted for BJP? They are ruling the India.
Yes.
So it cannot be majority rule in that sense. But they are 303 and the Lok Sabha. So there are so many myths about all these things at the same time.
Indeed, indeed. Now, last comment from Dr. Shamsul Islam, and then we will open up to the audience questions. Dr. Islam?
Yes.
You want to add to that comment?
Very important supplementary things are coming up, but I believe that we remain focused on the topics which we are discussing, right? Because otherwise, for instance, on Gandhiji, we can have a separate seminar. On Jammu Kashmir, we should have. But today we are, tonight, India time, we are focusing on the myths. So let's stick to to those issues. So far as, what I would like as a student of political science, that the issues which seems to be are religious issues. These are not religious issues. In fact, this is due to politics that religious issues are being used. And Hindus and Muslims as two separate communities or two separate nations, it was not an issue before 1857, the first war of independence. It was the defeat of Indian people that that elite of Hindus and elite of Muslims started saying that telling Britishers that we did not participate in this. We are separate. We did not participate with Muslims. Muslims said we did not participate with the Hindus. We are separate nations. So that is the time the two-nation theory starts and then becomes a useful thing for Britishers. Revolution conducted by a 9-member committee in which Hindu, Muslim, Sikhs all were there. We come to Jallianwala Bagh. Out of 300 people martyred in Jallianwala Bagh, 200 were Hindus, 100 were Muslims, 100 were Sikhs. Though more than 2,000 were martyred, but Hunter Commission said no, this was only 400, 291 something. So that kind of joint heritage, and Britishers just did not want to accept that fact and say, no, the communities are fighting, Hindus and Muslims are fighting. That was a political thing that they created religious, the fight against Britishers was converted into a fight between Muslims and Hindus.
Thank you, Dr. Shams. Now we will open to the audience. You can unmute and ask a very simple question. Don't give the explanation, just ask the question, and our expert panelist will respond to you in about 2 minutes. Any questions, please feel free to ask.
Dr. Mike, there is that's already one question is there from the Muslim children. They are like already learned that Islam is the best and all others are needed to be killed. So can we bust that myth from Dolly?
Sure, go ahead.
Where did she find this? Where did she find this? This statement. If some criminals are doing it and they have Muslim names, so what would you do? Would you blame the religion? Godse who killed Gandhi, and he said he was a Hindu nationalist, who will say that was a Hindu nationalist? No, he was a criminal.
That's a good response.
Yes, Dolly. Do you have any question regarding this now? Some Muslims are not good, some Hindus are not good. And very well. Can we learn it today?
I think the point of this webinar is to build a bridge to gulf divides, but to bridge the gulf, the seemingly unbridgeable gulf between religious communities. And we can bridge that gulf only by forging civil dialogue, right? Every community has bigots and every community has emancipated people. We cannot glorify the entire Muslim community and we cannot vilify the entire Hindu community, right? And every community has those who distort their religious scriptures. So Mike and I had a conversation over the phone a couple of days ago, and we discussed the institution of polygamy. And I said, very few Muslims in India practice polygamy, but it does exist. There are Muslims who distort the Quran to justify the institution of polygamy. There are Muslims who distort the Quran to justify halala nikah, which is highly questionable. And we need
beating of wife, they justify.
Absolutely, domestic violence, which is a complete distortion of religious scriptures. I, as a Muslim woman, believe that my religion gives me rights, gives me privileges, gives me political rights, socioeconomic rights, the right to inherit property, the right to voice my political opinions, the right to assert my religious ideology, the right to assert my feminist ideology. I believe that Islam gives me that space.
Pinky, other questions coming?
Okay.
Pinky,
Mike, this is Dilip.
Thank you, Pinky, for. Oh, sorry. Pinky had said I could ask a question, but it's okay. I can get in. I can ask later.
Okay, Dilip, what are you going to ask a question?
Yes. Earlier, I think Dr. Khan and a couple of the speakers talked about segregation of politics from religion. And that's a very profound statement, because one of the biggest problems is the politicians are leveraging the religious belongings or the values to seed this poison, seed of poison amongst the society. So my question to all the panelists is, India is probably the very few democracy, I don't know any other democracy which is operating where citizens have different laws based on the religion. There's a Muslim law, there's a Hindu law, and question to the panelists is, if there is a universal civil code, will that minimize? Because really, DNA, for God's sake, we come from the same stock. We are brothers and sisters. And in Hinduism, we say, Ekam Sat Vipra Bahuda Vadanti. That means there is only one truth, and we all believe in that. But poison is being sowed because of the integration of politics and religion. So if there is a universal civil code, will that minimize this kind of politicizing the religion? That's the question, and your insights will be welcome.
Each panelist, Dr. Sharma, Dr. Khan, Dr. Shams, and Punyani, take 2 minutes to respond so we can get more questions in. The question was about UCC. Anyone can take it.
No, I don't think that the UCC will resolve the issues in India. And the reason, when I was in discussion with this gentleman, I told earlier also that there is a big sort of the beliefs and rituals in South and in Northeast. Even among Hindus, there is a big difference of approach with respect to marriage, with respect to various things. So uniform civil code is simply a political motive behind that, but it is not going to resolve the issues. As they claim that just the present government said that this one tax, one nation, and they brought this in that name GST, and now the states are fighting for their dues for the last 6 months. In this COVID situation, they are not getting their dues, states government, different state governments. So this is a big myth that uniform civil code will do that. But bringing this new civil code is not going to resolve the issues.
Thank you, Dr. Sharma. Yes, Dr.
I
Shams.
think that's an excellent question.
Please, Nailaji, go ahead. Go ahead. You finish
I think that's an excellent question, and I've spoken about this at various forums. I've written about this in several articles as well. I absolutely believe that we need a very clear divide between politics and religion. There is no question about that in my mind. I believe that we need a politics, particularly in a country that claims to be democratic, that rises above religious and communal divides. Having said that, in the current context, the situation that India is currently in, minorities feel threatened, and minorities have been alienated as well. Vigilantism in India has been on the rise. The centralization of power in India is also a reality. You see, the India that I was rural country, but that federalism has been eroded over the years. And one of the biggest examples of that erosion of federalism is Jammu and Kashmir. So given the way things are today with the growth of Hindutva, we don't want minorities in India to feel even more threatened. So I agree with Pandit Sharma that this is not the right time to implement a uniform civil code. You see, the implementation of a uniform civil code would be seen as an attempt to homogenize India. would be seen as an attempt to homogenize Indian identity. And what we want today is a revival of heterogeneity in India. We want the revival of federalism and decentralization. That's the politics that I believe in. And if Mike would be kind enough to give me 2 more minutes, again, when Mike and I spoke over the phone a couple of days ago, I reminded him about the case of Shah Bano. I don't know if you're familiar with that case. Shah Bano was a divorced Muslim woman, a poor Muslim woman in Uttar Pradesh, who was divorced by her husband, did not have a source of income. So she went to court to apply for alimony, right? And the court thought her petition was perfectly valid and she was entitled to an alimony. But do you know who turned its decision? It was the Congress, not the BJP. It was the Rajiv Gandhi-led Congress, which believed that it would lose its Muslim vote bank in Madhya Pradesh if an ordinary Muslim woman got the right.
70 years old. 70 years old.
70 years.
And I think
70 years old.
Rahman, the alimony that she was granted was 150
something,
rupees a month, or
right. You are right. You are right.
A very small amount. But the Rajiv Gandhi-led Congress did not want to lose their mullah supporters. So they made sure that Shah Bano withdrew her petition. You see, so that's how politicians play to the gallery. And in the process, they hinder the evolution of a society.
I agree. Thank you so much. I think we need to have a pluralistic society. Each one of us is an individual. We cannot force all of us to be exactly alike. Go ahead, Shams.
I would like to respond. You know, he raised a very, very pertinent and very important issue. I do not remember his name. Who raised the issue about uniform G. What is his good name?
Dilip.
Dilip sir. Dilip ji, you have raised a very, very issue, and on this issue, resolution of this issue depends the humanization, the process of the humanization of Indian society also. Just I would like to remind Uniform Civil Code in the criminal side of life. In the criminal side, there are no personal laws, religious personal laws. But in marriage and family issues, it is the personal laws are allowed, and it was that thing, that issue, that our first Uniform Special Marriage Act 1958 is already there as a Uniform Civil Code. But all religious organizations, all these thekedars of different religions, Hindus, Muslims, Sikhs, Christians, they do not want that. What is that law? That you are free to marry and women are provided inheritance and proper share in the property. Nobody talks of Special Marriage Act. You know, that is the act under which I was married with Nilima Sharma. And we need not to change anybody's religion, and she has all the rights, wife has all the rights, all securities. So why do not we say that, okay, to begin with, let's have a Special Marriage Act as the Uniform Civil Code. No Hindu organization, no Muslim organization, no Christian, no Sikh organization would agree to that. But they will keep on saying Uniform Civil Code, like love jihad, and all these things. ask them what is their agenda, what is their what are the details of their special marriage, sorry, uniform civil code. They want Hindu code to be applied on all others. That is the issue.
Yeah.
That is the issue.
That's exactly
They want
right.
Manu Smriti to be applied on all Manu Smriti degrees. That is the issue.
As Dr. Punyani mentioned earlier, it is the men trying to control everybody else. And I think that's a patriarchy, as you would define it. I hope we try to be free, independent, and do what we want to do rather than be imposed on what to do. So we got time for our second question.
We need a secular framework in which people are free to practice their religions. And we also need the revival of the humanitarian aspect of every religion.
Agree.
That's what we need today, more than anything.
Pinky, we have any other questions?
Absolutely.
Yes, Samuel is waiting and he raised his hand. Please let him allow.
Sure.
I have a question in relation to Islam. Is it true that the Quran states that Prophet Muhammad will be the last prophet that God sends?
That question is to me.
Right. That would be.
You are the best person to answer.
Yes, you are.
You know, sorry, you know, I'm not an expert on Islam or Prophet.
Okay.
I am a researcher on these religious laws, on religious nationalism. But you know, within Islam, there has been always be conflict that whether he was the last one or not, right? And just I would like to share the fact that whatever we believe that Islam has a golden period, Islam had a golden period when 4 caliphs ruled. Just I want to tell my Islamist friends that 3 of those caliphs were murdered. So you know, to say that Islam had golden period and Islam had and now it has downfall and Islam is not ruling the world. This is all political statement, not religious statement. We must understand, and issues involved were very basic. It was not that Hindus had done that, or Christians had done that, or Sikhs had done this. Mahabharata did not take place between Muslims and Hindus.
Well, let me answer. Please turn your
Karbala Muslims by Hindus, and Panditji, you know, Panditji, you remind me of my father-in-law, Pandit Jagdish Prasad Sharma. But I respect you, but I also would like to tell you that when you are referring to that this term, philosophical term, it has nothing to do with the Brahmin. You know, Muslim rulers, they all use Brahminism. Brahminism is to divide people. Brahminism is to say that if you do that, you is a fascist tendency. Brahminism has nothing to do with the Brahmins, common Brahmins.
Let me answer the question Sam had asked. Sam, for Muslims, Prophet Muhammad is the last prophet because they want to get that message and follow that message, which is a complete message, but it is not for others. The Baha'is have their own practices. For Muslims, yes, Muhammad is the last. For Christians, Jesus is the only prophet. For Jews, Moses is the prophet. For Hindus, Lord Rama and Lord Krishna. So there is nothing wrong with believing that they are the last prophet. Thank you very much. Dr. Punyani, you want to say something?
No, I only want to underline one point, that there is a lot of confusion today between the morality of religion, which many religions identity for political purpose, which tries to be very aggressive, which tries to be very exclusionary and regressive. So we have to understand that all human beings basically believe in, naturally we believe in love thy neighbor or Kutumbakam, but it is a politics in the name of religion which is proactively trying to divide people mainly for coming to power and to impose the social norms which are pre-democratic. Roughly speaking, I am not a political science, but pre-democratic hierarchical values they want to
one religion only. Yani, corner one religion. For instance, I am seeing in comments that marriages of Muhammad, Prophet. But shall we also discuss Christians' marriages? No, they would what these gods were doing. We should forget about that, because there would be no end to that. We are bothered about what is happening today. We should try to.
Dr. I would add to that every prophet was a historical actor. The Prophet Muhammad was a historical actor, as was Jesus, as were other prophets. Islam was revealed in the 7th century, yes, but it is important to historicize Islam. It is important to contextualize practices that the Prophet propagated back then. The Prophet belonged to a particular society and to a particular culture.
Yes.
And what draws me greatly to the Prophet Muhammad is that he never claimed to be divine, right? He always said that he was an ordinary human being, a mortal, an ordinary mortal.
Indeed, indeed.
Right? He never claimed divinity. And he was the product, as I said. And what fascinates me about him is that in that period and in that society, he was such an emancipated man. He was a visionary. He was so far thinking.
But Naila ji, sorry to interrupt. You know, the issue is his marriages. My point is, what would you emulate out of a prophet or person? He has said so many things. So what would you emulate? Would you like to emulate that I would marry also the same number of wives? No, I don't think so. That was the message.
That wasn't the message at all.
Mr. Islam, Professor Islam.
Ji.
Hello.
Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Dr. Mike.
Yes,
Dr.
sir.
Mike. In my last comments, I would like to say 3 things. The myths about Hindus and the Muslims, you have written about 16 or so numbers. But I noticed that most of them are incorrect. And it is really a myth. There is no substance in that. Number one. Number 2, that most of the things are distorted in the media, so that there is a division of the society which is against your thought of pluralism. Number 3, that you would be surprised because 3 prominent Muslim scholars are here. And I would like to say,
I'm a Muslim scholar.
Professor,
I'm not a Muslim scholar.
One minute. One minute. I would like to say that when I said about Bhavishya Puran, so Pratisag Paru, so Maharishi Vedvyas says about, Adam and Hawa. He starts about Adam and Hawa. and he talks about this great sage also, and for how many years they will rule and what will happen there and after. So what Dr. Khan was saying, that Islam was not came only on 700 years ago or so. It was earlier also prevailing as per Bhavishya Puran. And they say that, even the various Muslim scholars have said that around so many prophets have come before Prophet Muhammad, and if you don't honor all the prophets, so you are not a true Muslims. Similarly, we also say that Sarve Bhavantu Sukhane, Sarve Santu Niramaya, Sarve Bhadrani Pasyanti Ma Kasya Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. हे ईश्वर हम ऐसा काम करें कि सारे प्राणी सुखी हों, सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः, सर्वे सन्तु निरामया, सब निरोग हों। मेरे से कोई काम ऐसा ना हो, I should not indulge in any activity, I not indulge in any activity which can harm any form of life, not only human life, no, even a bird, even an animal, or even anything. So that is the real concept.
Thank you, Sharmaji. We are coming to an end now. Let me make a statement. Our goal at the Center for Pluralism is to bust the myths and pave the way for tension-free living and work environment. We hope you walk out of this seminar respecting the otherness of the others and accepting the uniqueness that God has given to each one of us. When we accept each other without the desire for the other to change for me, then conflicts fade and solutions emerge. So the myths and stereotyping have persisted because very few people have done anything about it. This is a small step we are taking, and hopefully other people will generate and multiply this program. So ultimately, we all can live freely without tensions. When we meet a Jew, when we meet a Muslim, Christian, Hindu, we shouldn't feel tenseness, apprehension about them. And that's the goal of this program. And I appreciate everyone for contributing towards that. And I will ask each panelist to share in about 2 to 3 minutes how we can change the society where we can live tension-free, complete freedom. Whether I'm meeting a Hindu, Muslim, Jew, Christian, anybody, I should not feel tense. What should I do? So please take 3 minutes each. Anybody?
I will go first. I think it's very important to respect the common bond of humanity that all of us share. It's important to be open-minded, to listen to everyone, even those we might disagree with. It's important to recognize where they come from, and we need to acknowledge the validity of multiple points of view, and then try to build common ground between everyone. And building that common ground requires give and take. It requires negotiations as well as accommodation. So we have got to cultivate the courage to accommodate multiple points of view. You see, a house divided against itself cannot stand. It's important to keep that in mind. Also, real quick, Mike, as a Muslim woman, I would like to say that people talk about the multiple marriages of the Prophet of Islam in a derogatory way. But how many people know that one of the most powerful women role models in Islam was Khadija, the first wife of the Prophet, a very successful businesswoman, financially independent, doing very well for herself. She called the shots, and she was older than the Prophet when she married him. She, if I remember correctly, was the first convert to Islam to pursue his mission if it hadn't been for the financial aid him. So it's important to know about these powerful women role models in Islam.
In fact, Mary, Jesus' mom, Dr. Bibi Khatija and Bibi Amina were the role models. They were all they were not the traditional women, they were very open-minded women. So thank you. Thank you.
Look, it's an incredibly powerful chapter.
Thank you very much. Now, who wants to go next? Conclusion remarks.
Uh,
Go ahead, Dr. Shams.
Right. I believe that if we start serving the marginalized, the poor, the hungry, the dispossessed, the unemployed, we will find that the religious differences will disappear, because this class unity, griefs bind us if we believe in that. And I feel that Christ was very close to what Christ mother in fact raised, not include in this the rich, the capitalist, the corporates. I would like to work, and others also, to work for the for the human beings. And if we do that, we will find that religious differences disappear. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Islam. I think if we can put a summary statement, which we will do, and I will draft it and we can contribute. And I think we need to get a petition. We need to propagate the media in India, and also the Prime Minister to come out with the truth and facts. That way we can remove the myths and go for an India where all of us can get along easily and comfortably. So the next speaker, please. Dr. Sharma.
Hello. Yeah, I would like to finish only these two recitals from our Vedas, because that is the universal constitution. So, and they talk about universe, not only about countries and all that. So, Sahana Bhavatu Sahana Bhanaktu Sahaviryam Karva Vahi Tejasvina Vidvisha Vahi Mangalam Bhagavan Vishnu Mangalam Gravadbhaja Mangalam Pundrikaksha Mangalantra Bhavatu. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And Dr. Punyani, your last word.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think human society had a long journey, and so many religious prophets in their own way contributed to the development of moral values, human values over a period of time. But last 30 years in particular, we are seeing issues are being used to divide the people, and the victims of this type of a politics coming in the name of religion. I will say the victims of this politics in different countries may be different, but in India particularly, I will like to outline them. It is Dalits, it is religious minorities who get subdued because of the politics in the name of religion. So humans, this is particular phenomenon which is very dangerous in the last 30 years. One more point we have to remember, that most of us do not choose our religion. It's a matter of accident for us in which family we are born. but that we think is the best religion, and on that basis we try to look down upon others' religion. So first thing is that we have to have equal respect for all the people of all the religion. That is number one foundation, I feel.
Agree
And
with that.
sitting here in India, that there are multiple religions. Again, I quote Gandhi here. Of course, I don't want to go into other controversies of Gandhi, but equal respect for people of all religions. That is number one. Number two, having a respect and upholding the values which bound us as an Indian nation. The values, because of have to strive our human society towards that United Nations Charter of Human Rights, where equal dignity and equal rights are accorded to all. And here the equality doesn't mean just the right to vote. Equality has to be a substantive equality, where the poor, marginalized, and the oppressed, they also get the equal right to come towards that particular journey which human society must undertake over a period of time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, friends, upcoming, there is one event coming up. This is the 100 years of liberation of women. It started in, I'm talking about the United States. 100 years ago, women were considered a property of men. That is not anymore. We have come a long way in treating, believing, acting women as equal partners in life. All humans are equal. And that's what our Constitution in the United States is. I believe the Indian Constitution also says the same thing. And we're going to have an event on November 27th or 28th on Sunday about women. And I would like to invite you back again to talk about the freedom, how we should treat women. The old patriarchy has got to go away, and every human being is an individual. God has created to be unique beings with our own thumbprint, eye print, our DNA. So we need to respect that uniqueness that God has created and given to us. That should be the highest form of worship, to respect the otherness of the other. And with that, I want to thank all the scholars. You are great scholars. You have written a lot of work on it. And I would ask Pinky to conclude the program.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. And thank you for guiding us and sharing your wisdom with us. आज यही बात मुझे लास्ट में याद आ रही है. I'm sorry for my Hindi, but क्या बनाने आए थे, नहीं मस्जिद बना बैठे हैं. हमसे तो जात अच्छी है उन परिंदों की, कभी मंदिर पर जा बैठे, कभी मस्जिद पर जा बैठे.
वाह वाह.
Thank you.
Great and
thank you very much.
Mike, can I say something real quick?
Sure.
I just want to say that in questioning patriarchy, you have questioned your own male privilege, and hats off to you for that. Kudos.
I appreciate that. Friends, this is recorded the program, and it will be put on the Center for, if you go to the YouTube and type Center for Pluralism, it will be there, hopefully by tomorrow. And I want to thank everyone, and I appreciate it. And we will need to do more programs. I would encourage all of you scholars to do more of these programs so we can bust the myths and start living freely without tensions. Thank you very much. God bless you all. God bless India. God bless America. God bless every human being on the earth.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for organizing this.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Mike. Thanks, Pinky.
Thank you, Dr.
Islam.
Feel
free to email me. Feel free to email me.
Sure, Dr. Khan.
Acha, okay. I'll.
किसी भी वक्त आप करें, and then you and I will connect.
Really?
आप WhatsApp पे हैं? WhatsApp पे हैं आप?
Yes, yes.
तो अगर आप
my email is very easy. Otherwise, no to injustice@gmail.com.
मैं आपको अपना phone number भेज देती हूँ via email, और फिर आप WhatsApp पे connect करें मेरे साथ.
Right.
I will connect you all.
Just at gmail.com.
No to injustice@gmail.com.
Injustice. I'm sorry. All right.
It can't be justice.
Yes, it cannot be.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye, everyone.
India time, good night.
Yes, good night.
Have a good day.
Good day, good day, yes. Bye-bye.
Yes, Dr. Mike. Any special instruction?
Sure. No, we're just going to record it, and if you want to share something, go ahead.
No, I'm perfectly fine with that. And I'm like, we missed 2 questions. That's it, nothing else. And we are like ahead the time, 20 minutes. That's fine.
We need to practice. You are a co-host in my system, but
I know.
Get it. We need to check that out for the next program. We need to make sure we don't go through.
Yes. I cannot see any options here or any like setting something. I cannot do anything. I don't know why, but I'm so sorry about that.
That's all right. That's all right. We carried the program. Important thing is the message to bust the myths.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And if I may say,
go ahead.
If I may say that, you know, these Zoom meetings will get better as we learn.
Yes. Thanks, Sam. Appreciate you. We got 10 more people who's waiting. And
yes, Mike, wait a minute. I'm copying chat and sharing with you.
Okay.
Yes, someone is asking. Yes, we can copy the chat box, and from your chat box, you can also copy whatever you want. Thank you.
Thank you. Also, there are several comments here. I don't know how to how to capture them. If you know how to do it, if you can capture those comments, we will share it too.
I just copied everything and sending you.
Excellent. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Samuel. Thank you, Dr. Mike. And please let me know if you like anything from me. Thank you.
Mike, thank you. This was fabulous. This was absolutely wonderful. I don't know of anybody else in the DMV area that has been brave enough to take this on and to be able to debunk all of these myths. It is these myths that are causing the problem, not speaking to the choir and having these lovely interfaith gatherings, which are wonderful. But it is debunking these myths that we need to do more and more about. So thank you so much for arranging this.
Thank you, Andra. I appreciate you. Always appreciate your input. And I think you are a great contributor towards the interfaith understanding in the Metroplex.
Yeah.
And Andra, you are marvelous. I just see your comments in chat box. You are really wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So I also named a movie, 2 movies, you know, Muhammad, Legacy of a Prophet. That actually has been shown at universities. And the questions that come up because of that are really very rich. So maybe there's a way to maybe show some excerpts of that and then have us respond to it. But whatever we're doing, we're moving towards harmony among all religions. And not blaming the religion. You have to blame the people that are trying to interpret the religion. And they interpret it the way they're taught and stereotypes and all of that. So you're doing great work, Mike. We just have to keep on keeping on.
Thank you so much, Andra. Appreciate that.
Okay.
And
I'm going to excuse myself. Thank you.
Comments. We got, we will close the event, but it's free time.
Is there something I can speak?
Sure.
Yeah, so I was of the opinion, if it is possible as a request, there has been a strong effort in California trying to address the school syllabi in the public school syllabus, because a lot of this information that we're talking about also needs to have an influence on the information that is disseminated to children via the school system. So if there can be some effort on that direction also, would be much appreciated. I guess that is asking for a lot, but if something can be looked at that as a solution.
I want to speak to that because I was a teacher in Fairfax County Public Schools. The most powerful way to do something like that is to gather together parents, because parents have clout. Teachers don't have any clout at all, and outsiders don't have clout. But if you gather together parents who feel that the school system has to change and has to deepen their understanding about religion, that possibly could move them to change.
So I guess what I'm trying to say is that kind of effort has already been initiated in California. If we can take that as a basis to start and to use something like that up here, that might be of immense use. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. There is some amount of effort that has already happened where a lot of these students with their parents have made public comments to say, hey, this is the text or the prescribed information that we read, which is incorrect from factual information, and they've tried to validate that because we are not the youngest. It matters where these children are getting their information and their facts is what I'm trying to get at.
Ashwin, I'm fully with you. I think we will put together some binder of myths and how to buzz them, and we will put together something in the next 6 months as we do more programs. And I think it's
thank you
a
for
great idea. We suggest
Ashwin, Dr. Mike, can we have his email ID so you can chat in future with him? Ashwin's email ID.
Ashwin, sir, please share that
Or do you
email
know
ID.
him? Yes, please.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Is this a good time? Yeah.
In chat box, you can write it. Thank you.
Okay, fair enough. Yes.
We appreciate that, Ashwin. I was involved with the California textbook controversy, and even in Texas, I was involved in it. I had my made little contribution. I think children should be taught not to poison them against one another. They should be taught to respect each other.
Yes. I'm just typing that.
There is a Ghazala Alam, Preeti Segal, and Shahar Banu Quraishi, Gabriel Peace. You're welcome to share your comments. We'll stay for you.
Mike, maybe we could pick up Ashwan's idea and find some key people in California, because this is the power of Zoom, to Zoom them in to see what they're doing, and then maybe we also could invite some representatives from the counties that Ashwan is concerned about, Fairfax County and neighboring counties, to hear what they're really doing. That would be amazing. In Fairfax County, there's a new committee that's been set up called Faith and Equity. And this may come under that. That might be an interesting initiative to hear how you actually go about changing the system. That's very difficult. And if they've been able to do that, we need, as Ashwan said, not to reinvent the wheel, but see how did they do that.
Yes, agree.
And this is something we need to take nationwide, because in different areas of the United States we have different mindsets. So where I live, it's called the Bible Belt, and there's very how should I put it, very extremist Christians, that it's their way or the highway, for a better way to put it. And that's something I fight against, so to speak, in the sense of, I mean, not fighting, but to come to an understanding that Jesus.
By the way, to friends who are staying, Sam Madden is our board of director of Center for Pluralism. Sam, we can't hear you.